I. Part 4, Story 3, A Good Man's Footsteps. That's what the title says. How far the caravan moved that first day, we don't know, but probably wasn't more than a few miles, with all the stops that had to be made for feeding the animals and the children and looking after their many needs. And so it was day after day, just a few more miles and a few more miles. What faith Abraham needed to keep the vision of the beautiful city bright and shiny in his heart all that long time. At last they came to a place called Haran. It may have been the name after It may have been named after Lot's father, or perhaps some of his relatives lived there. In any case, Abraham decided to stop there and give everybody a rest. There were many things that had to be done for so large a company. Then, too, old Father Terah wasn't feeling well, so they camped at Haran and stayed there until Terah died. That's I'm questioning that. For me, I'm just questioning that. While at Haran, the caravan grew larger and larger. Lots, lots of calves, kids, lambs, and baby camels were born. More boys and girls arrived to swell the families and of the servants. Yeah, that's what's that. So many, by the time Abraham was ready to leave, his moving problem had increased greatly. Then the number of people living in and around Haran asked if they could come along too. They had heard of Abraham tell of of great the great God of heaven, who loved and worshipped and who he loved and worshipped, and who called him to leave Ur of the Chaldeans and journey to a new and better land. As they were to as they listened to his wonderful story and watched his godly life, they had decided to join him, and Abraham agreed to take them with him. So we read that when the caravan was about to move again on Abraham's 75th birthday, Abraham told Sarah, his wife, and Lot, his brother's son, that all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they have gotten in Haran, and they went forth to go to the land of Canaan. And into the land of Canaan they came. King James again. It would have been far easier and more comfortable to have stayed in Haran, where everybody had been so friendly. But this, Abraham knew, would not be doing God's will. He must go on, ever seeking the land of promise. Now the journey was slower than ever, with so many more people and cattle in the party. They made only a short distance each day, but it didn't really matter, for nobody was in a hurry. They took their time and enjoyed their trip. As they moved southward, the scenery became more and more beautiful. Now and then they passed small settlements of people, descendants of pioneers who had moved from Babel 2 centuries before. They found them to be distant cousins. And then, of course, an illustration down at the bottom. Being, being children of Canaan and son of Ham, hence the name the land of Canaan, for the country we will call Palestine. Of course, this is before Israel became Israel, but I digress. Sadly to say, sad to sad to say, most of the people had forgotten God and were worshiping idols, or bowing down to the sun or the moon as though they were God. They were they looked with astonishment at the caravan of people who carried no idols or whose kindly, noble looking leader was forever talking of one who made the heavens and the earth, and who wanted everybody to love and serve him. And Abram passed through the land unto the place of Shechem, unto the plains of Morah, Morea, Morah. And the Canaanites was then in the land. And the Lord appeared to Abram and said, Unto thy seed will I give this land, and there build he an altar unto the Lord who appeared unto him. Many months had passed since he had set forth from Ur, and you can imagine how glad Abraham was to hear God's voice again. Now and then during the long journey and the many delays, he may well have wondered whether he was on the right way and doing what God really wanted him to do. But he now knew how happy he was that God was pleased with him. In his joy, he built an altar and offered a sacrifice, while he, Sarah, Lot, and all the servants knelt to worship. As the smoke of the sacrifice rose high in the air, some of the Canaanites saw it and wondered what happened. As they came out and saw Abraham, and all his company on their knees before God, their hearts were touched. They remembered what their fathers had told them of a great creator. And we do have an illustration. It's a painting by Russell Harlan, and it looks like it's made of oil, the original, and that's what it looks like. And it does have a caption. The first thing Abraham did when he pitched camp was to build an altar. Then he and his household would reverently worship God, while the heathen look on in wonder. Heathen. Okay. Okay, let's go back. They remember that they remember what their fathers had told them of a great creator, and some decide that they too would like to worship him as Abraham did instead of bowing down to idols. Wherever the great caravan paused, Abraham built an altar until the land was dotted with them, each of a silent a silent witness to his faith. When years later strangers found one of them and asked what it was and who built it, there would always be somebody say, "This is one of the altars of Abraham, servant of God of heaven." These altars marked the footsteps of a good man, a man of God, who was seeking to do right and witness of his Maker. We should do as he did. As we move from place to place throughout life, we should try to leave behind us memorials of our faith. Long after we have gone from one classroom to another, or from one school to another, or from one city to another, people should be able to remember us as children of God, who always stood for the right and truth and fair play. Not that we shall be perfect examples all the time. Even Abraham, while he was building his altars, made one big mistake. And the Bible tells us about it, so that we wouldn't be discouraged if we should slip sometimes. Going forward on towards the south, Abraham led his caravan all the way to Egypt, and there he tried to deceive Pharaoh. Because Sarah was so beautiful, he was afraid the king would kill him and take Sarah for himself. So he said that she was his sister. In a way, it was true. So how much better it would have been if from the start he had said, "She is my wife." Pharaoh at first treated him royalty and gave him many presents, but at last, as always, the truth came out. The Pharaoh was angry, and he had good reason. And Abraham was very much ashamed. The Pharaoh he commanded his men concerning him, and they let him away. They sent him away, and his wife, and all that he had. In disgrace, the caravan turned northward again. But though Abraham was heart-stricken at his failure, he knew where to go, and he went on his journey from the south even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Hay. I think it's Harry or Hay. Hai. Unto the place of the altar, which he had made there at the first. And there Abram called on the name of the Lord. King James again. He had much to say to God. Oh, how he regretted that he had spoiled the best opportunity of his life to witness for him in Pharaoh's court. But God forgave him, and all was well again. It is not it is a good thing when we make a mistake to go back to some altar we built in the beginning, to some place where we meet God before, and then pour out our hearts to Him in humble repentance. For He will hear us and forgive us, and we shall go on our way again, knowing He loves us still. And then, of course, two illustrations, and it looks like two separate pharaohs, or the same pharaoh is just a different dress. This is the first time the pharaoh, and then up here is going to be cast out by the pharaoh. And then, if you think about it, this could be the one that they met. If you know your history. Okay, that was part 4, story 3, and then we go to our next story.